Hi guys, my name is Inanula and I share with you years of personal experience in the fashion industry, giving you key insights into buying and merchandising skills. So, what I wanted to share today was a deep dive into range planning. And so a while back, I did do a video on how to build a range, which I had done a basic range plan for an example view, just to understand the basics of it and the principles. And I did get a lot of requests on the actual sheet. And so what we're going to do today is a deep dive into that and just have a closer view, and just understand it in more detail and see what everything exactly means. And then what I'm going to do is a part two, which will be an extensive range plan. So I've also worked on an extensive range plan, which is just basically an industry standard range plan, which is a more realistic view of how things do play out on a range plan in the industry setting. And it just has way more detail, way more everything. It's industry standard. So I really hope you enjoy this video. And again, please always let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything that doesn't make sense or if there's anything you want me to cover or touch upon. I will eventually get to it. So I've got loads to show you. So I really hope you enjoy this. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to throw it up on the screen now so that you can have a proper view. And so yeah, this is the basic range plan that I did share a while back, and we're just going to have like a proper look at it. And so as we all know, the range plan is what we would call your fashion Bible. It's the complete and utter bread and butter of the buying and merchandising team. This is where each style begins and ends. We see a style's journey from its range plan. So we start off with the styles. This is a range plan that does have the images on them. So this would be your designs. So let's say, we've got here the asymmetric ruffle blouse. We know which department it belongs to, which category it's in, and subcategory. This is pretty standard for each style. You would have a department, category, and subcategory. And it would go into a lot more detail if you were to have an extensive range plan, because we need to know where everything sits and lies. If you're working in a department store, for example, there would be brands on top of that, so it would start off top line, it would be women's wear, then it would be the brands, it would sit in each different concession brands that you have within that department store, and then it would be tops, blouses. Sometimes it would even go into, wovens and jerseys and different things like that. You'd have prints or non-prints, and it just depends how detailed a retailer wants to get with their categorizing. But again, this is just the basic view. So let's say here we've got our ruffle blouse. We've got a nice picture of it, possibly CAD'd up by design team. Women's wear, tops, blouses, asymmetric ruffle blouse, that would be the style name. Then you would have its color, then you would have its supplier, these are all completely hypothetical suppliers and everything. This doesn't exist. Top Factories United is what I have here as a supplier. Again, just hypothetical. And supplier country is India. And the cost price is here, it says £5, and the selling price is £20. So we can see here that we've got a markup here. The intake margin shows as 75% because obviously when you take that away, that's what we've got as a margin. And I'd say 75% is pretty much what you're going to get as an industry intake margin. You do want to create quite a good gap for yourself. Later on, this style will go into sale if it's not moving. There will be promotions at peak seasons and things. So we do always start with a very high margin. It would be circa 70% is what we would say for an intake margin on any style in your high street retailers. And then we've got here for total units, 1,000 units. That means that we are buying 1,000 units of this asymmetric ruffle blouse. And what we have here is we have store units. Store units are 600, online units are 300, and international units are 100. What this is how we are splitting up the units that we're buying. So if we've agreed we're going to buy 1,000 units, that's just the total units of that style. We now need to ascertain where each of those units are going to sit on the sales front, let's say. So we're putting 600 in stores, 300 online, and 100 are going international. And what international is usually, especially for high street retailers, they will have some franchise stores of that brand, and they will send those overseas to sit in those franchise stores. So yeah, that's nice. So now if we were to go to this fun section of the range plan, which is usually like your top line, this is when we're looking at the total. So we can see we've got here your total cost. Your total cost is essentially your cost price times your total units. That's how much we're spending overall on this style. Because if you can see initially here where we had your cost price of £5, that's the cost price of one unit, right? And so this total cost price is your £5 times the total units of £1,000, which is £5,000. And then it's the same for your selling value. We're looking at the selling value for this whole style. So how much are we going to make if we were to sell this whole style that is at full price? That would be your selling price times by your total units, and then that's £20,000. So obviously you've got your selling price of £20 times 1,000 units. And as you can see over here, these are all fun formulas. You know, we've got that times there, so they show up automatically in your range plan. That's another fun thing that you would get used to if you were working on a range plan. Lots and lots of formulas, which are all basically just fun retail math that, you know, you'll pick up along the way and that you would know essentially. Your gross margin, again, is another fun formula. It's essentially the margin for your top line, which is your selling price minus your cost price divided by your selling price. And that's what your margin is, of 75%. So that's what this section is here. So obviously we've got plenty of styles here. Well, we've got a few styles here, and we've got their totals down at the bottom as well. So for example, we want to know for this whole range, what is the total cost of everything. So the total cost of everything is £46 per unit, but as a total cost, it is, I don't know if you can see down here, let's move this way, it is £40,000, because that's times all the units that we are going to buy. And then it's the same for your selling value, and your gross margin is averaged out at 73%, so that's quite bang on your industry standard. We do have a few margins that are below, like for example your 67% here for this style and your 68% here for this style. These are on the lower side of margins, just only slightly, but overall you want to make sure your range totals out at above 70% margin. That would lead you in a comfortable position overall. So I hope this makes a bit of sense. That's just how this works. The positioning of the range plan would be right at the beginning of season. Obviously, there would have been some pre-planning to get these styles onto here. So, for example, you would look at the history, you'd look at last year for this season, what were the best sellers, what was doing really well. Then you'd throw that into an initial range plan, and then you would start negotiating on the prices with your suppliers based on last year's prices. So you would go back to your supplier, for example, Top Factories, and you would say, that style you did last year was really good. We're moving it along in perhaps a different color, or we're changing the ruffles a little bit, but we still want that cost price of £5 that you did last year. Maybe even you would try and go a bit lower if possible, if they could do that. And that's how you move a range along, and that's how you get somewhere. When these styles are all plotted out on here on this range plan, and your cost prices have been agreed, your margins are something that we would approve, then you would start developing it, and this is what you would always go back to for reference, and it's also what you would go back to when you start looking at how things are selling and everything. So that's it really. That's what we've got. I do have lots more to show. For part 2, I will show you the extensive range plan, which looks a bit like this. It's a beast. You have plenty and plenty of columns, so much detail. This is what an industry standard range plan looks like. I will take you through this in part 2.